Adam Booth, Upshift Online. The bike next to me, this beauty, covered in dust and dirt. It's 2018 Honda Africa Twin Adventure Sports. A little bit of a mouthful, but that's the new name of this all-new model. They still sell the Africa Twin that you're used to. They came out in 2016 that everybody's loved, but they've done some upgrades, made this a little more off-road worthy, even more than the last Africa Twin. This one has a few little bolt-on cool things we've done to it, but in general, this bike is pretty close to stock. So we took the liberty of changing up a few things. Originally, we rode this bike a couple months ago at the intro in Prescott, Arizona, and we've had it since then and been putting a lot of miles on it. And in the process, we've come across some aftermarket goodies to put on it. The Outback MotorTech engine guard and skid plate is super beefy. It's actually held up quite well to a few falls, and it has the marks to prove it. The exhaust here is a Yoshimura, and that adds some serious beefiness to the sound, a little more pep, and all around just makes you feel cooler when you're ripping through the gears. So this bike comes with gold wheels, and some people love the look, some people don't. It's not that we didn't like the look, but we had a set of W wheels sitting around laced up with some Shinko Adventure meats on it. So we put those on because we wanted to hit some off-road, hit some dirt, have some fun with this thing. And I mean, how can you resist a set of brand new big beefy tires on this thing? The other thing we've got going is a Trailtech Voyager navigation system. It's their all new color one. You can track your buddy if he's got one. You can look on the trail, see how far away he is. So that's a really cool addition to adventure riding. So if you look on the screen and it's not moving a couple miles back, you know your buddy's hanging out. You're not going to hit him head on. So some of the differences between this 2018 Africa Twin Adventure Sports compared to the regular Africa Twin is that the suspension travel has been increased. Up front, it has almost an inch more of travel, and out back, it's close to an inch as well. So that just gives you more travel and more ability to, smash things on the trail and get a little gnarlier out in the dirt. With that increase in travel and increase in ground clearance, the seat height is almost an inch taller as well. So if you loved the other Africa Twin, the standard one, and the ability to touch the ground, if you're my height, 5'8", 5'9", this is going to feel a little taller when you're out riding. So instead of touching both tippy toes, I have to kind of shift and touch one foot. And that's one thing I did really love about the other Africa Twin was that I could put my feet down easier. I felt lower. It's something you can get used to. This has 2 seat heights. We have it set on the lowest right now. But overall, you are going to have a little taller seat height. But in trade, you get more suspension travel. This adventure bike has the most suspension travel on the market right now. So the increased travel, it does pay big dividends out on the trail. We've been riding for a few months, but then just today, some water bars hitting them pretty fast. I felt the suspension bottom, but it wasn't clanking and it wasn't blowing through the travel, and that increase in travel really makes a big difference. So overall, the increased travel is well worth it if you're a guy who really likes to ride harder and ride faster and do a little more serious off-road riding. It still is going to give you all the nice smooth characteristics on the asphalt, the smooth dirt roads. None of the comfort is given up by going to the increased travel. In the engine department, it's very similar to last year's Africa Twin and the original Africa Twin. Now they've actually lightened up some of the internals, so it's a little more peppy, a little lighter, overall a little less engine mass rotating. Not a ton that you're going to notice right away. So what they've done is they've increased the choices across the electronic world of mapping and motors and electronic braking. This year, both Africa Twins is now a fly-by-wire, no more throttle cables. So that gives them the opportunity to build a lot more programs into the power. And now it has 3 different settings for engine braking. And what's kind of crazy and a little bit overkill, it has 7 different traction control modes and one that is completely zero traction control. And out on the trail, in the dirt, anywhere, any setting of traction control, even one which is the least, working its way up to the most traction control at 7, it kicks in way too much. Even setting 1 won't let you really even slide the back end around on loose dirt. It's very heavy on the traction control. The best route is to go to 0 and just run it without traction control. So now the Africa Twin has 3 different power modes on top of 3 different engine braking and 7 different traction control. Along with the 3 different power modes and 3 different power deliveries, you have your normal drive mode because it is a DCT, and then you have your S mode, which is more of a sporty mode, and you have 3 settings within that S mode for different shift points. One being a little more aggressive than normal drive mode, S2 being more aggressive, and S3 being the most aggressive. Those are really, really great modes to ride in. Honestly, S3 is really cool. The new feature on this fly-by-wire, new electronics, is that it gives you a little blip of throttle when it downshifts. So if you're coming into a corner under braking, the motor actually pops up a little bit in the RPM as it downshifts to avoid that super hard drag. It's kind of like IndyCar, F1, high dollar expensive race car stuff. When you bang the shift down, it blips the throttle for you. Even if you're riding in full manual shift it yourself mode and you come into a corner and you downshift, it still blips the RPM up to give you that nice ready to go throttle. It's not just blipping to the next gear and dragging the bike, slowing it down. I spent a couple hours riding this thing, switching between traction control, power modes, braking modes, S1, S2, S3, drive mode, and most of the time, just because I come from a normal dirt bike background, I really loved the manual shifting. I just click it over by the D button for drive, click it into manual and upshift and downshift myself. That just allowed me to come into the corners in the perfect gear I want. The S3, depending on the terrain, it works really well too. It's pretty aggressive. It'll keep your shifts high and it'll downshift early for you into the corners. So in manual mode, obviously it's a DCT. It's like driving an automatic car. If you come to a stop, you're not going to stall it, but you still get to choose your own gears. If you're in the midst of riding in full manual mode, doing the shifts yourself, and you just don't want to do it anymore, you just reach over and push the M button and it goes right back into automatic. The cool thing is, if you're doing manual shifting, you can't stall it. So even if you stop in fourth gear to a dead stop, the bike's automatically going to put you back into first gear. It's not going to allow you to try to roll off in third gear or fourth gear from a dead stop and smoke the clutches. So with the endless combination of modes to choose from and combinations between power and braking and traction control, I tend to find myself every time on about power mode setting 1, braking under full engine braking option, and traction on 0. I just couldn't get used to having traction control even on the lowest setting because it just wouldn't break the back end loose even around a corner when I wanted to slide. The downfall of the traction 0 is this thing has a ton of power, and if you want to get whiskey throttle with it, it's going to spin and dig a trench and maybe pitch you off. But you just have to have a little bit of control with the right hand. I think Honda could probably go in between their 0 and their 1 with a little more traction control to allow you a little more step out. So Honda has a few settings that are just easy to choose from, a few modes. There's an urban, there's a tour, and there's a gravel setting, and then there's a user setting. And that user setting is the thing that really allows you to choose your traction control, choose your engine braking, and choose your power. The cool thing now is a lot of the problems with other adventure bikes is you set up all your stuff. When you're ready to do your ride, you turn the key off, you turn it back on, and you got to sit and go through all your settings again. The cool thing about the new Africa Twin is when you choose your user setting, something you really like, turn off the key, turn it back on, that user setting is still there. The one thing you cannot do and save your user setting is the ABS turn off to the rear wheel. Every time you turn that key on, you're going to have to push the ABS button to turn off the ABS braking to the rear wheel. That is not something that saves in the settings on user when you turn the key off. Turning off the rear ABS on this bike is key for anything in the dirt or being able to stop quickly. You'll find on loose, slippery dirt coming into a corner, if you have full ABS front and rear and you jam on the brakes, you're not able to pitch that bike out in a different direction and get it turning very well. So every time I turn the key on and start this bike, my user settings are what I like, but then I immediately turn off the rear ABS, especially in the dirt. Out on the streets and driving around town and cruising, I leave the ABS on because it does better than I can do. One big change that's very welcome, and everybody questioned why it even came out that way in the first place, were the foot pegs on the Africa Twin. They originally came out the first year, 2016. There were these skinny little things that you had to replace soon or it just killed your feet. They've beefed up the mount, they've beefed up the foot peg, and it's much, much better. I think they could even go a little bigger and a little more stout than what it is, but huge change, and I'm glad Honda did that to it. We did add a few cool little things over the last few months. Probably one of the most important things you can do if you plan on riding off-road or you plan on being short like me and tipping over and doing dumb things is some sort of crash guard skid plate like this. This bike has fallen, it's been dropped at low speed, a couple slide outs, and that big massive thing on there has protected this bike completely. And that's money well spent because the last thing you want to do is replace some side cases. Last year's tank was just under 5 gallons. The new Africa Twin Adventure Sports is 6.3 gallons. So that's going to get you way more range and let you not worry about gas mileage. So overall, Honda adding the Adventure Sports to their line and offering another option for the Africa Twin it's pretty on the money. Longer travel, just cool styling. This is my favorite look for the Africa Twin. I know some people don't really dig on this. I love the gold wheels when they're on it. Maybe it's a little retro in me, a little nostalgia, but this is the coolest looking Africa Twin for me. In general, Honda went crazy with the choices on the electronics on this. I mean, it takes a while to choose what you like, and it's probably way too much for most people, and that's why I love that user setting. Once you find it, just lock it in and live with it. So if you're looking to get the new 2018 Africa Twin Adventure Sports DCT, just like our dirty dusty one here, it's going to cost you $15,699. A regular Africa Twin DCT is $14,199. So if you're a serious off-road guy who wants longer travel and a few more features, the Africa Twin Sports is well worth it. So there it is. Here it is, the 2018 Africa Twin Adventure Sports. Bigger tank, better suspension, tons of engine modes, amazing styling, and just all around better bike than the standard Africa Twin for the serious off-road guy who needs more travel. He's going to ride harder, he's going to ride farther, and just looking for something that's really going to give him the performance he needs. So for more information, check out Upshift Online.